this year is better, thank God, with the vaccinations, that she feels more safe and the conditions are a little bit better, a little bit more back to normal. A sentiment echoed by others here as well.
I think it's great to have all these different parts of our community be able to get together and show support for this for this cause that is really helping bring our world back to normal.
This particular model has been used for a few weeks now, but officials would like to see it expanded in the hopes of reaching more vulnerable populations throughout the region. Katerina Georgieva, CBC News, Leamington.
And more than half of all adults in Ontario now fully vaccinated against COVID-19, a big milestone. But now the push is to ensure more people get that first shot, particularly those who haven't had that dose yet. Lorenda Redikoff has more on the province's strategy.
They braved the conditions to get their vaccine on day one of a walk-in clinic at the Toronto Congress Centre.
If they had drop-ins for people, I think everybody would get it. Makes it easier.
Just walked in and done.
Done. It was perfect. It was the best thing ever.
The government wants to make it easier for more people to get their shot, as it announced more than half of all adults have both doses. 78% have one dose.
This is exciting news, but we are not stopping there.
But an age group the government wants to reach more is young adults. 67% have one dose. Part of the strategy, enlist social media influencers.
Now let's walk through the new guidelines from the Public Health Agency of Canada.
This science communicator already posts COVID facts online.
I think it's really important that we let them know why, even if you're at lower risk for severe outcomes from COVID, there still are a lot of benefits to you getting vaccinated.
We need that outreach.
This marketer loves the idea if it's done right.
This will not be effective if this is a government message and then some youthy influencer hops on at the end and says, cool bro, get vaccinated. That's not going to work.
And he says it's not just about finding one person with millions of followers.
The real difference is going to happen when influencers with maybe a smaller reach but a much more profound, a deeper reach within their smaller communities are getting on board with the message.
Another piece that could increase vaccination rates, new data showing who's testing positive. In one recent month, out of more than 29,000 COVID cases, more than 83% of people were not vaccinated. More than 15% had either one dose or it was less than a week after dose 2. And just over 1% were fully vaccinated, considered breakthrough cases. Over the past 6 months, that gap is even bigger. Out of close to 400,000 cases, more than 96% of people were not vaccinated. Just 0.4% were fully vaccinated. Plus, the province is using one more way to get out the message to get your shot. Starting in the next few days, if you go to McDonald's, you'll come out with more than a burger and fries. This flyer will be added to bags, an attempt to increase vaccine confidence and bring on the cravings for two-dose immunity. Lorenda Redikoff, CBC News, Toronto.
Workers on the Gordie Howe Bridge project celebrating a milestone today. It's now been more than 1,000 days since construction started on the bridge. It's slated to be completed by the end of 2024 with plenty of work left.
We're looking at 1,000 days construction is what we're celebrating right now, and we've had over 3 million man hours where we've not had a lost time incident. So from a safety standpoint, we're doing well. Our goal is to have no incidents. Things are actually moving fairly well. If you look behind us, you can see the towers for the bridge. It's going to be about an 800-meter span between this side and the other, and we're about 140 feet high now. The walkway up top, that's about the location of the roadway where cars will be driving when the bridge is finished.
A couple weeks ago, Michael and I were on the American side and talking to one of the supervisors, and he was really proud of the fact that the American tower now is slightly ahead of the Canadian side. So a little bit of competition going back and forth, which he was saying the Canadians were ahead 2 weeks ago, but we've caught up with them on the most recent jump. So interesting to hear the two sides trying to see who can get the tower done first. But of course, they're going to do it safely.
Are you on time and on budget?
It's a complex answer given the pandemic, but as I said, BNA is doing well working through the pandemic. We're still learning about the impacts, and it'll be many months before we fully understand the overall impact, thinking about supply chain and that kind of thing. But so far, we are still have the goal. They're still working toward end of 2024.
One thing we have to make sure we're doing is continue working together. If we're working together, we have a better chance to try to minimize the impacts of COVID and the things that are going on. And we're doing better with that. We're working, we're communicating, and that's part of the battle. Because you have different organizations trying to with the same goal overall, but you have to work together to make it work.
Now, the birds have been out since May. Those e-scooters have people rolling around Windsor's core. I got my first ride this morning, taking part in a pop-up safety clinic along the riverfront. A flock of freshly sanitized scooters ready for some action. First, though, a lesson on launching.
Hi, my name is Osama Khan. I work for Bird Canada. Here's the bell. It's the brake, the throttle. You gotta get some momentum first, and then you would press the throttle to get it going.
You get some speed on this thing, eh? Yeah. There's a bit of surprising burst of power on these scooters as we head through an obstacle course of sorts. And as we get up to a little fake stoplight here, you want to make sure you obey all your traffic laws, look left and right, give her a go again. The other big one as well, I'm wearing a helmet on. It's optional if you're 18 plus, but if you're 16 to 18, you gotta wear one. And if you are under 16, you actually can't jump on one of these things. You also can't double up, and you have to keep off the sidewalks.
I'm doing better now.
As far as enforcement, warnings for now.
Right now, from a police standpoint, we're providing information on where and when, and for people to be safe. People can be hurt and have gotten hurt, and there's been a little bit of an uptake in the hospital, so that's why we're out here today.
These safety days will be semi-regular events with the CEO in town to help guide new riders.
It's been a great experience. People in Windsor are super passionate about the scooters, which is wonderful. There's always hiccups at the beginning of these programs, but those are largely behind us now.
Those hiccups early on included birds landing in places they shouldn't.
There are a couple in the Detroit River. We're still trying to figure out how to get them out. We got a few out using a hook, our in-house patented fishing technique.
They track those scooters with GPS, making them easy to find and valuable data collectors.
We compile all that data, we give it to the city on a monthly basis, and then at the end of the year we'll do a big report with the city, and we'll show everyone kind of where the scooters went, kind of heat maps in terms of where they travel, which BIA has got a lot of travel. Also things like an important stat for us is vehicle replacement. So in other words, how many times does someone take a scooter trip over a personal vehicle trip, which is important for reducing not just greenhouse gas emissions, but safety for Vision Zero goals in cities and things like that.
It'll be really interesting to see that report when it's released. The federal NDP calling for the appointment of a special prosecutor to examine crimes committed at former residential schools and other institutions. 2 MPs accused the federal government of long-standing collusion with major churches and covering up evidence of abuse and deaths.
The map of Canada is covered with crime scenes. The unmarked graves that have shocked Canadians are just the tip of the iceberg. We have been saying this for generations, and it's time for Canada to face the truth. Together with Charlie Angus, I am calling on Attorney General David Lametti to appoint an independent special prosecutor immediately that has the power and resources to conduct a thorough and comprehensive investigation into residential schools, day schools, sanatoriums, and everywhere Indigenous children and peoples have faced decades of violence and abuse at the hands of the genocidal partnership between the federal institution and the churches.
The 2 MPs identified 2 priests they say committed sexual and other crimes against Indigenous children. They accuse the federal government of sitting on a trove of documents that identify perpetrators, documents that they want to see made public. The race to elect the next national chief of the Assembly of First Nations turning into a nail-biter. The 2 remaining candidates are separated by a thin margin of support. CBC's Olivia Stefanovich brings us the story.
No candidate has reached the 60% required to become national chief.
Still no resolution after 4 ballots, but the margin between the 2 remaining candidates is widening slightly. Former Ontario Regional Chief Roseanne Archibald leads by a mere 30 votes over former Muscowagan Chief Reginald Bellerose from Saskatchewan.
Some folks are really tired of this idea that our political institutions and our advocacy bodies can be just as much of an old boys club as, regular politics.
Riley Yesno is watching the results closely. If elected, Archibald would become the first female national chief, raising the possibility of ushering in a new era to the Assembly of First Nations.
And as an institution, I think it certainly really needs to kind of have an overhaul in terms of its democratic nature, how representative it is of the people actually, living in these communities on the ground.
Before the election, Archibald scrutinized the organization's financial management. Then the Assembly launched an investigation into bullying and harassment allegations against her.
When you try to do the right thing for the right reasons, Indigenous people and Indigenous women are usually punished.
In a Facebook post, Archibald says she's asking Bella Rose to concede and make room for the first woman to lead the Assembly. Yesterday, Anishinaabe Grand Chief Elvin Fiddler from Northern Ontario suddenly dropped out of the race and threw his support to Archibald.
She can definitely maybe set an example for other female leaders out there who maybe are on the fence about running into politics and doing things like that, and maybe encourage them to challenge these systems and structures and the patriarchy that exists.
Whoever wins will be elected at a critical time, with the discovery of hundreds of unmarked graves at former residential school sites. Calls for accountability are growing louder, and many people are looking to the Assembly of First Nations to lead that charge. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
A LaSalle High School graduate is hoping to win $10,000. He's part of a competition to create something out of duct tape. Here's how he handled the sticky situation.
So when it began, I was just scrolling on the internet for various scholarships, and I came across one that kind of piqued my interest because it was a little bit more of a creative outlet for me, and I was like, I might be able to do something with that. So instantly I started sketching out designs. I started creating various ideas about what I could create for this contest. As I grew up, I realized I really took a liking to the arts. They didn't come natural to me, but as I grew, I realized it was something I was really interested in, and I started to work on that and really build up my skills. I got a lot of the inspiration for my designs based on different runways, it's like the wings, for example, or the double-sided suit. I've seen that on runways. The wide shoulders is another idea that came from that. Wings have a little pulley system built in with strings connected, and when the strings are pulled, they shoot up. It's the show stopper. It took a span of about 6 months to do, 160 hours about, and 27 rolls of duct tape. It was really amazing because it was just an idea in my head, and it was a drawing and something I created on paper, and then 6 months later it was something that was on my body made out of duct tape, and it was a completely original idea, and I'm very proud of it.
Something that Red Green would be proud of. Ryan, I don't have $10,000 for a full suit, but I got a couple bucks for a tie if you're able to make one, and you're into selling those off. We take a live look outside here. The rain moving past Windsor, but we're going to bring in Nick Sirkovich after the break here and figure out what was going on in the skies during that tornado warning that was issued late this afternoon. Now canceled as we remain under that severe thunderstorm warning.
W.
Joining us now for a live look at the weather is Nick Sirkovich. Nick, just a wacky day of some real warnings, some watches. What do we have in place right now?
Well, earlier on, we actually had a tornado warning that was issued by Environment Canada. That's being dropped, but we're still looking at severe thunderstorm warnings across southwestern Ontario, and they're actually expanding. And I'm going to show you the radar here in just a second, see what's going on. Now, there is a look at the current severe thunderstorm warnings. And if you look at the radar here, what you're going to notice is a lot of these storms actually firing up just as they approach the lake there. And as they cross over, it's not a coincidence that they're actually sort of forming a line that parallels Lake Erie and the shorelines of Lake Huron. And basically what happens here is you get this convergence of the lake breezes. And in addition to that, we've already got an unstable atmosphere and we've got some sunshine. So all of that kind of triggers these storms off. There is the chance for severe weather here. And this sort of geography is actually the reason why southwestern Ontario is one of the hotspots, or the hotspot for tornadoes in Canada. So scattered thunderstorms, the potential for severe weather as we head through tonight, again, because of that instability in the air, and we've just got the ingredients. It sort of fizzles out by tomorrow, and then tomorrow I think we're going to see some sunshine in there. Slight chance of a few isolated showers, but generally speaking it stays dry. Sunday though, scattered showers again, and we're going to get some waves of rain showers as we head toward the beginning of next week. Right now sitting at 22 degrees, humidex at 30 at this point. You go through the overnight period, 17, slight chance of seeing a few showers, but mostly in the evening hours. Tomorrow, again, a mix of sun and cloud to mostly cloudy skies at times. Slight chance of seeing a spotty shower, but really most of it closer out toward the London area, southwestern Ontario. Probably not going to see rainfall tomorrow. I've just kept the slight chance in there. 24 degrees, 25 on Saturday. Looks pretty good. Approaching system there as we head through Sunday at 25 as well. And then some unsettled weather, and that's as we lock into a new weather pattern to kick off next week. So there you go.
Just when they think you're out, they drag you right back in. Isn't that how that goes?
Yeah.
Isn't that the way? Thanks, Nick.
You bet.
Up next, a protest playing out on banknotes on the East Coast. We'll show you.
app.
Reports quoting various Haitian officials are emerging about the assassination of the country's president yesterday. Haiti's elections minister told the Associated Press news agency that 2 of the 6 men who've been arrested appear to be Haitian Americans, and that one of them is allegedly a former bodyguard at the Canadian embassy. Haiti's police chief said today the individuals who carried out the attack have been apprehended and they are now looking for the masterminds behind the assassination plot. A total of 6 suspects have been taken into custody, several other suspects killed in a gunfight with police. There's word today that the country's prime minister will act as Haiti's leader until elections are held, expected later this year. An Indigenous business owner on Canada's East Coast is staging his own protest, one $10 bill at a time. The owner of the pizza shop refusing to take banknotes that feature the Prime Minister, who played an instrumental role in creating residential schools. Aaron Potty reports.
You better check your wallet before heading into Paul McDonald's pizza joint in Membertou. He is no longer accepting bills featuring Canada's first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald, who is considered an architect of Canada's residential school system. The owner's decision comes following multiple discoveries of unmarked graves at former residential schools across Canada.
Ripping children away from their families, trying to take the nativeness out of them, keeping them away from their parents, and it's just wrong in my opinion.
It's a matter that hits close to home. His mother was a residential school survivor who talked only briefly about the abuse she witnessed. He says this protest was inspired by other acts of defiance in his community, such as flying the Canada flag upside down.
Again, like going back to all the stuff that's being removed. We changed the street, Cornwallis. I mean, that's a street name. Why can't we do the same with money?
The Bank of Canada says there's no law that forces businesses to take certain banknotes or other forms of payment. A retired Halifax law professor agrees, saying it is a private agreement between buyer and seller.
One example of that, all for very different reasons, is the position by many people during the COVID pandemic that they would not accept cash, but that you had to pay by debit or charge, even though people were offering cash as legal tender.
McDonald says staff can choose to enforce the store's new rule, but as long as he's working the cash, those $10 bills will not be accepted.
Like Terry Fox, why isn't he on a bill? You know, that man, he started all the fundraising with the run across Canada and stuff, right? Those are the kind of people we need to put on the bill. Positive.
The Bank of Canada hasn't featured McDonald on a bill since 2017 and says the old bills will remain in circulation until they are worn out. McDonald has been replaced on the bill by Nova Scotia civil rights icon Viola Desmond. Aaron Potty, CBC News, Membertou.
It was a magical and resilient run for the Montreal Canadiens, but in the end, the Tampa Bay Lightning proved to be too much, dashing hopes that hockey's most coveted trophy would return to Canadian soil.
Tampa Bay Lightning are back-to-back Stanley Cup champions.
The Lightning taking their second cup in 2 seasons with that 1-0 win last night. They did it this time on home ice in front of a crowd of more than 18,000 people. And Lightning fans can look forward now to a more traditional championship parade this year with fewer pandemic restrictions. I don't know a lot about hockey, but if the Montreal Canadiens had a watch party in Windsor and Jacob Barker was there, things might have turned out differently. That's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, you can go to our website anytime, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.